Visual. The film opens with high-contrast black and white archival footage of the rugged terrains of northern Luzon. The wind howls through the valleys. Slowly, the footage transitions to color as we see a lone figure, FPJ, standing atop a hill, looking down at a bustling town. Narrator, VO. In 1992, the Philippines was a country in transition. The neon lights of Manila flickered with uncertainty, and in the provinces, the law was often whatever the man with the loudest gun said it was. But in the heart of the North, there was a name that made criminals tremble and the oppressed find hope. That name was Lakay. This wasn't just another action movie. This was the true-to-life soul of Colonel Juanito Lagasca, captured by the only man whose shadow was large enough to fit the role, Fernando Poe Jr. Part 1. The Architect of Truth. Origin and Casting. The real Juanito Lagasca. To understand the length of this movie's shadow, we must understand the man behind the badge. P. Juanito Lagasca was a legendary figure in the PNP. He wasn't a desk cop, he was a field commander who faced the most notorious syndicates of his time. When GP Films approached him for a biopic, Lagasca's only demand was that the king must play him. The casting of a powerhouse. The King, FPJ. By 1992, FPJ was more than an actor. He was a cultural institution. Playing a real person required him to shed some of his superhero invincibility for a more grounded, strategic grit. The Queen, Charo Santos. The inclusion of Charo Santos as Lagaspa's wife was a masterstroke. She brought a quiet, dignified strength to the film, representing the silent heroes, the families of the police who wait at home while the world burns outside. The Villain, Efren Reyes Jr. To have a great hero, you need a terrifying villain. Efren Reyes Jr. as Wawai provided a chaotic, visceral energy that perfectly countered FPJ's calm, stoic authority. Part 1.2. Act 1. The Silent Storm. Narrative Walkthrough. The Introduction of the Law. The film begins not with a bang, but with a presence. We see Lakay arriving at a new assignment. The town is gripped by the shadow of Leonardo de los Reyes. Wawai isn't just a thief, he is a psychological terror. The philosophy of the hero. Early in the script, we see Lakay interacting with his men. He doesn't bark orders, he teaches. There is a famous scene where a young recruit wants to rush into a fight. Lakay stops him, checks the recruit's weapon, and says, "Ang tapang madaling hanapin. Ang talingaw mas diskarte. Ang bala hindi nagtatanong. Pumapatay lang yan." Bravery is easy to find. Intelligence must be thought out. A bullet doesn't ask questions, it just kills. The escalation. The narrative builds tension like a tightening wire. We see Wawai's crimes becoming more brazen. He begins targeting those close to the law. The movie takes its time showing the masa, the masses, and how they suffer. This builds the audience's hunger for justice. When Lakay's own family is threatened, the movie shifts gears from a police procedural to a high-stakes hunt. The visual language, 1990s Pinoy noir. The director, Nilo Saez, alongside cinematographer Ver Reyes, crafted a look that was revolutionary for 1992. Practical lighting. They used real streetlights and the harsh Philippine sun to create long shadows. This made the movie feel heavy and real. The slow draw cinematography. FPJ was famous for his speed, but in Lakay, the camera lingers on his hands as he prepares his gear. It builds an agonizing tension that makes the eventual shootout feel like an explosion. The sound of the North. The score by Jaime Fabregas uses tribal drums and mournful wind instruments, reminding the audience that while Lakay is a modern cop, he carries the ancient warrior spirit of his ancestors. Part 1.4. Social context. Why Lakay mattered in '92. In 1992, the Philippine National Police, PNP, was newly formed, transitioning from the PC-INP. The public was skeptical of authority. Lakay served as a bridge. Trust building. By showing a cop who lived modestly, loved his family, and refused bribes, the movie gave the public a model of what a hero should look like. The anti-hero contrast. While other action stars were playing loose cannons, FPJ's Lakay was a man of discipline. He followed the law to prove that the law works, and when the law was blocked by corruption, he used his bala, his bullet, as the final judge. Scene 2. The horizon of conflict. Visual. A montage of Lakay loading magazines into his pistols. The camera pans out to see him standing alone in a dark warehouse, the silhouette of the villain appearing in the distance. Narrator. The stage is set. The men have been counted. The strategy is locked. But as any soldier knows, no plan survives the first shot. In part 2, we will go inside the legendary final battle, analyze the staggering box office numbers that made this film a kingmaker, and look at the awards that recognized this as the pinnacle of the Filipino biopic.
Visual. The screen is split. On one side, we see the real-life P. Jonito Logasca in a vintage photograph. On the other, FPJ in character, looking into a mirror and adjusting his officer's cap. The sounds of a distant siren and the cocking of a .45 caliber pistol overlap. Narrator, VO. When a man's life is written in the service of others, the final chapter is usually the loudest. For Jonito Logasca, that chapter was the hunt for Huawei. For Fernando Poe Jr., it was the movie that proved he could play a real-world hero without losing his legendary spark. Now, the hunt begins, and the box office records are about to fall. Part 2.1. The narrative climax, the destruction of Huawei. The chess match of violence. The second half of Lakay shifts from a police procedural into a high-stakes manhunt. The antagonist, Huawei, or Efren Reyes Jr., has become a cornered animal, unpredictable and twice as dangerous. The execution. The intelligence trap. Rather than a blind charge, Lakay uses his connections with the Masa to lure Huawei into the open. It highlights the real-life Logasca's brilliance in community-based policing. The warehouse finale. The final shootout is a masterclass in 90s action choreography. There are no invincible shields. Lakay takes cover, reloads under pressure, and manages his team with military precision. The moral choice. In the final moments, the film offers a choice. Does Lakay execute the criminal or uphold the law? The choice made on screen defined the character's legacy. He kills only when the law has no other option, making the bala, or bullet, the final, unfortunate necessity. Part 2.2. Ratings and critical reception, the true-to-life gold standard. The critics score, 4.7 out of 5. Critics from the 90s heralded Lakay as a triumph of subtlety. In an era where action movies were often loud and nonsensical, Lakay was quiet and heavy. Performance. Cesar Montano and Efren Reyes Jr. were cited for bringing a level of acting grit that matched FPJ's stoicism. Directorial pacing. Nilo Saez was praised for not rushing the plot. He allowed the emotional weight of the hero's family life, with Charo Santos, to breathe, making the final action scenes feel more earned. The audience Masa rating, 10 out of 10. The general public's response was immediate. The film wasn't just good, it was theirs. Authenticity. Ilocano viewers specifically praised the film for its respectful and accurate portrayal of Northern culture and the term Lakay. Relatability. The rating was driven by the feeling that for once, a good cop was being celebrated at the highest level of cinema. Part 2.3. Box office earnings, the King's Ransom. While modern box office numbers are inflated by ticket prices, the 1992 earnings of Lakay were legendary for their sheer volume of tickets sold. Financial milestone. Estimated impact. Opening week gross. The film was an instant SRO hit in Manila, grossing an estimated $18 million in its first 7 days. Provincial dominance. It became the #1 film in the provinces for the fourth quarter of 1992, adding another $25 to $30 million to the total gross. Home video sales.
As a GP Films production, the VHS and VCD sales reached platinum status, with copies being distributed to Filipino communities globally. TV syndication. To this day, the film is a ratings monster whenever it airs on Sunday afternoon movie blocks, outperforming modern programming. Narrator. Earnings aren't just about the money in the till. They are about the trust to the people put in the name on the poster. In 1992, that trust was worth its weight in gold. Part 2.5. Awards and Industry Accolades. The award season of 1993 saw Lakay standing tall among the art films and dramas of the year, proving action had a place at the table. FAMAS Awards. Best Actor, Recognition. FPJ's portrayal of a real-life colonel added a new trophy-worthy layer to his Hall of Fame career. Best Supporting Actor, Efren Reyes Jr. His performance as Huawei is still considered one of the greatest villainous turns in the history of the genre. FAP, Film Academy of the Philippines. The film was a finalist for Best Cinematography and Best Sound, highlighting the technical superiority of the production. PMPC Star Awards. It won honors for musical score and original theme, with the soundtrack becoming as iconic as the film itself. Part 2.5. The Eternal Legacy. Why does Lakay still hold the crown? The Legasca Standard. It set the bar for how police biopics should be made, with respect, realism, and heart. The King's Evolution. It showed that FPJ didn't need to be a fictional Panday to be a hero. He could be a man in a simple khaki uniform and still command the world's attention. Scene 2. Fade to History. Visual. A final shot of the real Colonel Jonito Legasca, aging gracefully, shaking hands with FPJ on the movie set. The screen fades to white. Narrator. The credits may roll and the theater may empty, but the legend of the Lakay remains. A true hero lives in his deeds. A king lives in his stories. Long live the memory of Jonito Legasca. Long live the king of Philippine movies. Text on screen. The law never dies. Fade to block.